just finished, actually switched jobs. I was teaching psychology at the University of Utah, and just in January started working as a data scientist with a social impact investing firm here that's also with the university. I'm teaching the introductory statistics course, and nice to see everyone.
That's great. Thanks, John. Nawang? Nawang, can you hear me?
He better unmute his mic.
Okay. Yeah, I don't even know if we.
Good morning, everyone.
Nawang, we're not really catching you. Paula, could you introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Paula. I saw most of you guys in the Moodle training course. I've worked at Future Generations for almost a year now, and I'm here to take notes in your meeting.
Thank you, Paula. That's great. Eric, I see that you came on.
Hi, I'm Eric Pappas. I'm a consultant to Future Generations over the last few years, some curriculum work, some assessment work. I teach full-time at James Madison University. That's about it.
Thanks, Eric. And Mike, you came in the room?
I did.
and you got coffee.
I got coffee and I'm late.
Okay.
I've also been to the piano house this morning. So.
Okay, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Mike Recklin, and I am teaching this term the community-based natural resource management class. And I had hung my hat up here at North Mountain for many a year as the dean of the graduate school in those days.
All right, thanks. And Dan Wessner, did you say you're on? I don't see an indication.
No, I don't see him. I was expecting him, but I don't.
Okay, he was going to call in, and I
don't see him. It's just the beginning confusion of the game.
Okay, Colin would show up with a phone. So again, thanks a lot for coming. I might change around the agenda a little bit. I know that Daniel would like to give a brief update on our Higher Learning Commission meeting that several of us just returned from. And so why don't I let Daniel speak to you for a second here.
Yeah, it's great to have everybody on this, gathered together in this faculty meeting. We just spent 3 very good days at the Higher Learning Commission annual meeting in Chicago, ended yesterday. Eric, Jesse, Christy, and myself were there along with Dan Wessner, who isn't on this call. We're expecting Dan to join. Some of you will remember Dan Wessner. I know Ben and Henry, for instance, and Dan Robeson from years before when Dan was our chief academic officer. He is now transferred full-time to rejoin our faculty as a professor, leaving his position at Regis University and University of Denver. The news from the Higher Learning Commission is very positive vis-a-vis the reaffirmation of our accreditation. There have been a series of questions that have come up, and without taking extensive faculty meeting time, let me just say that they are all in the rearview mirror, and we're going forward, and the reaffirmation of our accreditation is expected on June 29th, when it will be formally voted by the board of the Higher Learning Commission. There are several new initiatives that we will propose at that time once that reaffirmation occurs. So those may come up with, it looks like Dan Wessner just joined. So later in the meeting, Dan, you can bring up those couple new initiatives that we're going to propose, or that you want to propose after we go through the reaffirmation of accreditation. But I just want to give everybody a very positive sign. Accreditation now seems to be on track.
Wonderful.
Yeah, we had a good meeting, and then the higher, for those of you who aren't familiar with the HLC, it's our regional accrediting body, and we were just attending the annual conference. Happens every year. Lots of good sessions on assessment, student success, and on the process of moving through accreditation. So it was very, very good meetings. Dan, do you want to, we all finished introducing ourselves. Do you want to briefly introduce yourself and then we'll move on?
Sure. This is Dan Westner calling in from Denver. I'm on the road getting my son to the university right now, but while driving safely, I will participate as well as I can. I was with Future Generations for 4 or 5 years, a decade ago, and then we moved to Denver, and I've worked on a couple of master development practice programs via the MacArthur Foundation since, and am happy to be rejoining the team from Denver and on North Mountain.
All right, thanks, Dan. Like I said, we have a good mix here of term 3 and term 4 faculty. So I'd like to start with term 3. We're right at the point now where the residentials have completed. And I'm going to give, maybe this would be a good time right now for Nawang and Freya, if you could give a brief report on the residentials. And then I'd like to ask the term 3, so you guys can be thinking the term 3 faculty to give a brief update on your courses, how things are going since the residentials are over now. We're now into the time of the community labs.
Okay.
So this is kind of a transition time in our courses. So maybe Nawang, if you could just report briefly on the Himalaya residential, then Freya, I'll have you report on the Uganda residential. Make sure to unmute yourself.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Then good morning, everyone. Actually, I have sent our residential report already in PowerPoint. I think everyone's got that in all. Everyone, I sent it out.
Nawang, do you want to turn your video off, please?
And yeah, okay. So we had quite good residential program there in Arunachal, and we are very good the cooperation from communities, and also the future generation staffs. They have helped a lot. We enjoyed. I think all the students, they have been enjoyed quite well. And we had a little bit the problem that, Indian, the money issues, because North Mountain, we wait the money, but we didn't receive it yet till now. But we borrowed from FGA some money, and so we, anyway, we come salo for that. But still there was problem, but the residential was quite good. And we have made summary every day. We had the debriefing session, and so each in the community we have good discussions in Palin, Zero, and Yachuli, and then we had Sile, the de-airing area, 5 or 6, 8 we visited, and we did that. And we had very good discussion and exercise about Mike Recklin's assignment about the community-based environment conservation exercise. That was excellent, because there we had, they did all the observations, we discussed a lot. And same time, we tried to put the work on the each and every course outcomes. We focus on that. I think you have received my PowerPoint report. So we have mentioned that what we learned and what we visited. And so Arunachal people very excited to come after a number of years, because 2003 we took the master student in the Arunachal, and then several times, but then we have break down some years we have not taken the future generation student, and then we come back again. They're very excited. And there, everyone's wishing that Dr. Daniel is they want missing lot. And the Palin, especially the Palin communities, are very much exciting to see the people who they know, just like Dr. Daniel and Mike Craiglin, Dan Westner, all these are they're asking about. So that was quite good. And also we have the final the feedback session we had quite good, and one of Future Generation FGA staff noted, and I sent it to the JSS for the feedback about. So I think also that is quite good feedback there. And also they have some request in written in that feedback, some in term 4, some request, special request about the curriculum and time, and also explanation the course selection issues. There are little bit problems, so they have given that noted on that. So these are just highlight, I think. So you can see that my PowerPoint, that will give you more details. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Nawang. And I think for the money issues, you can address that with Stephanie later. And then certainly we want to talk with you about the course selection issues. And for those of you for term 4 with this class, we have done the term 2 and term 3 residentials differently. We have the regional residentials, and so actually 2 residentials were going on almost simultaneously. Uganda first, though slightly before, and then Arunachal Pradesh. And so we didn't have actual course faculty on the residentials, but the regional directors, Freo and Nawang, took into consideration and integrated the learning outcomes into the field visit. So it was kind of an experiment, but I think it's worked quite well with 2 and 3. And so that they were able to schedule learning field visits which address the learning outcomes in each of the courses. And I know Nawang talked about addressing the learning outcomes in the visit for Mike's course, Community-Based Natural Resource Management, and he also did that for the other courses. So thank you, Nawang, for that good
report. Yeah, actually the money issue, Stephanie sent on the time. She has did exactly good time, but in the Indian government, they have FCR rules. They have cross-checking all this NGO monies coming in. So that's the reason they have stopped, I think, parking in some Calcutta Central Bank. So that's an Indian business problem, not the North Mountain problem.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Nawang, for that heads up. Freo, could you give us a report on the Uganda residential?
Yes. We had the second Africa residential in Uganda from the 6th to the 15th March. It's the second Africa residential because we had the first last year in September, from September 13 to 22nd. And the recent residential in Uganda, we had 14 students from 6 countries, all the way from the USA to Ghana, then Uganda, Sudan, Ethiopia, Somalia. So all in all, 14 students. 2 students from Ethiopia couldn't make it for work-related reasons. I mean, they were not able to take time off. The residential in Uganda was organized in consultation with the alumni that we have there, and IIRR, which is a partner to Future Generations University. IIRR stands for International Institute of Rural Reconstruction. And in the 10 days residential, we had field visits, peer-to-peer learning, presentations by community leaders, and presentations by renowned personalities, academics in Uganda. So students were also given a chance to talk about their all of them had a chance to talk about their practicum. That's one new thing that we introduced. So it was a 5-minute presentation with no PowerPoint, no notes. So it's an impromptu presentation about one's practicum, answering critical questions. What is it about? Why are they doing it? What methodologies are they using, and to what end? So all the students had a chance to talk about that. Field visits, because of I think Mike's communication and therefore influence, it was skewed more towards community-based natural resource management. So wherever we went, that was sort of the common denominator for the field visits, including community forests and family gardens and what have you. So students were very, very happy. But having said that, all learning outcomes for all courses were addressed as planned, and then this is being checked on the daily reflection sessions that we had, whether we were on the right track or not. So in Uganda, the sessions took us from Kampala, the capital city, to crossing the equator to a family farm, and then back to a community, a clan actually, that's known for a restorative justice practice that they have. And then from there, we went to have a meeting with one of the academic institutions, a young university in northern Uganda, Gulu University, where we had a wonderful opportunity to meet master's students of natural resource management of Gulu University with our students. So it was really great to see our students sitting with their counterparts, from an African university, learning, and that was supported by a field visit to a community forest area, and also farmer field schools, and relating what we have seen in the family farm in a place called Masaka, or St. Jude family farm, and what was replicated in northern Uganda. People trained in the family farm were also practicing that on the ground, far hundreds of kilometers away from the training venue. So all in all, the evaluation or assessment indicates that the residential was very, very successful. There are comments or observations made so as to make the residential, better learning opportunity for the future. But all in all, it was successful. It was successful.
Thanks a lot, Freyo. And I would really like to compliment both Freyo and Nawang for their great jobs on carrying out the residentials. Not only were they, of course, in charge of ensuring that logistics went well, and then ahead of time, and then that everything went smoothly during the residential, they were in charge of the field visits and ensuring that learning outcomes in each of the courses were addressed by those visits. So great job, Freyo and Nawang. Thanks a lot. I'd like to open this up to some of the Term 3 faculty now for observations on where your courses are and questions that you might have about the community lab phase that's now going on. The end of Term 3 is May 12th, so we're just a little over a month away from that. So this is really the time, since we don't get to talk much, if Term 3 faculty, if you have comments or observations. I think that would be John, Dan Robinson, Luke, and Daniel. You guys are all term 3 faculty right now. And Mike. Sorry, Mike.
Well, this is Daniel. I just want to highlight that we, in our course this term, experimented with peer-to-peer learning. And we should have begun this process years ago, because there's huge potential. The grades that are being done now on the peer assignments, Luke is doing that. But I just want to say that as we look forward to Term 4 and future programs, the whole peer-to-peer work, it needs to be emphasized. And Eric Pappas in particular has been working on this for the last 3 months, developing faculty manuals, student handbooks. And so I don't think it's really necessary right now to go into any detail, except I think this is a very promising way to expand our pedagogy.
Thanks, Daniel. Others, Mike, would you like to speak about where you are? And
I think the students in the community-based natural resource management course are in good shape. We're into the community labs, and my advice for the folks in the next term is stay in touch with the students. Keep back and forth. If you get an email, respond quickly. send them out emails every once in a while, just to keep, they're so far and they've got so much that you got to keep a dialogue going with them. Right now, my students are turning in contract forms. They get to choose their own deadlines for when those labs are due, but they have to adhere to their deadline. I don't accept late work. And by this time in the course, students know that, and so they're doing it. I think it's important to set a bar and then hold to that bar wherever you want it, but hold to it. Don't vacillate on that, or you end up losing them. I've got one student who's finished both community labs. I've got a total of 3 community labs in. Almost everybody's got their community lab contract forms in, and got some pretty neat lab things coming forward. And actually, I'm talking to Micah now. I don't know if we're still on here, about turning some of their community lab work into blogs so we have turned one into her yesterday on. And I will say they came out of those residentials with great experiences, because one of the things they can do as an optional assignment is a report on their community-based natural resource management activities during the residential, and there are plenty of them. So you guys did a good job for me out there. Thanks.
Down that often, it just does what just happened, which is it blurts out, which is just enough to disrupt the Zoom connection. And I see Christy back. Christy, can you say?
Okay, thank you, Luke, for filling in. That was great. Okay, it shows it pays to have some of us off-site. Let's see, Dan Robinson and let's see, John. It would be great to hear from you briefly about your courses, or any concerns or questions that you have, and then I'd like to segue over to term 4. So stay tuned, guys. You term 4.
Yeah, this is Dan Robinson. I would say that the online portion, the students have finished about as well as they've ever done for a class of mine. So the online portion went very well, taking Mike's suggestion of kind of scheduling your grading so that they turn them in on I had them turn them in on a Saturday, and we got the grading back to them on a Monday, and it just all around it went so much better to have that kind of a rhythm going. I'm afraid that that's not transferring yet to the lab phase, but some of them just turned in their last online assignment, and we'll see. I did not have a contract form for them to sign up. They were simply to indicate which labs they were supposed to do, and to get in touch with me to talk about how they were going to do it. So it sounds like that needs to be a little more formal.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Thanks. John.
That's good to know. Otherwise, you don't want to have those formalities just as another bit of paperwork. But if it actually helps in their completion, then that's important.
Yeah, good point.
So
Yeah.
I only have 6 students in my class, and for a stats class, I would say there's been a really high degree of variability in student performance. I've got a couple who have allayed my fears that the course was too hard by, even though it was a bit late, turning in the assignments for the online portion that were really well done and showed that they really did get a good understanding from the MOOC that we used. So good sign on that front, at least for a couple students. And then I've got another student that I have not heard from for weeks and weeks, and a couple that I still never really heard from the get-go. So it's a little bit hard to tell what's going on there, whether it's just internet problems or something else. But at least a couple of the students are doing quite well. Everybody is behind, I think partially due to just internet connection problems. So I've been pretty lenient about that, as long as they're sort of in touch with me about what's going on. And I think I'd like to know what the sort of real deadline is on getting these final lab assignments done. But I like the idea there of having a contract with the students, since my original date is probably going to be too early based on how long it's taken them to do the online portion.
This is a good question, John, and what our policy is that if if students want an extension or an incomplete, they need to contact the faculty directly. And so you and I should probably talk about these students. But, and so it's up to you to grant that extension beyond May 12th. But if they haven't been doing anything, then there's really no grounds for an extension. They should be completing work, and there needs to be a good reason for granting that. And so we should, I can talk individually with each faculty member about your specific situation. But they've been, students have had plenty of heads up about the deadlines. And so they need, in order to be given an extension, they should have a good reason, and certainly because otherwise things can keep just carrying on, and you need to be done with the course also.
Okay.
So are there any specific questions about policy among term 3? And this will also help with term 4 as you have issues, similar issues probably that will come up.
I don't think so. I'll talk to you offline about the specific students.
Talk offline about specific students, because this is a pretty critical period right now. Yes.
This is Luke. I was just going to give a brief bit of insight from our experience with going to scale. Much of it, I just want to, I really agree with some of Mike Recklin's observations. We've taken a similar approach as far as deadlines and deliverables. Maybe I've been a tad bit more lenient, but always based on reason. People who are asking for an extension the day of the deadline don't get the extension. People are being rewarded for communicating that several days in advance. I've been really impressed thus far. We don't have that many students that I'm actually worried about falling too far behind as of yet. And it's been interesting to see the results from some of this peer learning work we've been doing. But we will also see, I've got a big hanging question mark vis-a-vis the community lab phase, where before we've been really careful that kind of to stagger deadlines. And I think what may easily happen at this community lab phase is that there's a time management crunch because the students have multiple deadlines in a very short period of time for a large artifact. And so I'm waiting to see what happens. I'm really excited by Mike Recklin's report. And I like the contract idea. I may employ it for future classes because we did not. But I would also just kind of throw that out, that to me there's a big question mark hanging. What happens May 12th, or in our case, May 11th is the due date for all the community lab work. And I may even kind of give students the heads up on May 5th that if they're going to need that extension, they've got to get that extension request in really suddenly, and maybe kind of put forward their own contract as far as saying, well, I've got a time management issue, but if you could give me an extra week so I can get my stats work out of the way, or my entrepreneurship work out of the way. And so I would just kind of flag that as we hit the home stretch for the other term 3 faculty, that I expect we will run into some of that.
A bit of good news is on my contract so far, the latest anybody is turning anything in for me is April 28th. No, 25th. So they're all planning on getting it done in April.
That's great.
Yeah, so that should spread out the time crunch a little bit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead, Dan.
The deadlines in my course are the 15th of April for small artifacts and the 30th of April for larger artifacts, for more time consuming artifacts. So if yours are in May, there should be less of a crunch.
Okay. Yeah, Luke, I completely agree with what you've said. I think this is one issue that we definitely have to look into, is that we did well at staggering the online portion of the courses, but then that left the time essentially April 1st to May 12th for all community labs. And this is part of the model that we need to continue to work on and continue to improve, because it does mean a lot that the students have to do, and a lot of good time management. So the important thing is I'm going to be sending an email out to the students this week, just encouraging them and just telling them how important it is to stay in touch with each of you, with each of the faculty, and to let you know what's going on, because that communication issue is the most important, so you know what they're doing. And again, if they need an extension, it's up to you to grant it. Otherwise, they get the grade that they've earned on May 12th, and they know that. And so it depends on your schedule, if you're willing to accept things after that date, or if you're not. So we respect what your own constraints are. Any other questions? If not, we'll move on to term 4. Actually, let me bring Jesse in here. Jesse, I think, will be a good segue to speak to term 4 and to term 3 in his position of assessment. So Jesse, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Okay, so just to clarify here, you'd like me to talk about the direct assessment that's upcoming?
Direct assessment for term 3 faculty, and then speak to term 4, because we had the Moodle workshop to see if if there are questions that they might have as they continue to develop the courses.
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, one of my hats that I wear at Future Generations is that of Director of Learning Technology. And the other is assessment. So I'm just going to talk really briefly about one of those things in each camp. So let me first talk about Moodle, because that's probably the easier piece. We had a Moodle workshop a couple weeks back now. It was attended quite well, and a link of that workshop was sent out to all faculty. So if you didn't get it, please let me know. If you did and you weren't able to attend the workshop, I really encourage you to watch it. Basically, we just gave, Paula and I gave an overview of our Moodle platform and tried to provide a lot of resources that are available for you to dig in and get up to speed on using other learning technologies that we now have applied basically across the curriculum. Every course that we have, with the rare exception of a couple of contracted courses, are taught using the Moodle Learning Management System platform. In terms of internal resources, both myself and Paula Smith are relatively well trained up on course creation in Moodle, and we are available to help you in several capacities. You can reach out to us with specific questions, or if you, as a Term 4 faculty member, are feeling maybe a little behind and maybe not very confident in putting together an online course in Moodle with the course template that has been provided, then I would suggest that we set up an hour session, one-on-one or two-on-one, Paula and I and you, just to sort of walk you through some of the processes and make sure that you put together a really compelling course. So please reach out if you would like help, and we are always here throughout the semester to give you a hand with that. Are there any questions from, well, anyone, I guess, about Moodle at this point? Anything that I can do or that Paula can do for you, or maybe questions that would be helpful for the rest of the faculty as well? All right, well, I will take that as meaning that things are going at least fairly well at this point. So please reach out when you need help. Okay, so let's talk about assessment briefly.
Jesse.
Sure, I did.
Yes. Mahara. I'm beginning to get emails about help with Mahara.
Okay.
They're mainly from students that have basically not done it. For the rest of you, Mahara is our e-portfolio platform, which is compatible with Moodle, and we're just using it this term for the first time. I anticipate as artifacts, I'm requiring them to have their artifacts on Moodle, both in the Sustainable Development course and for the practicum. And so I think as those times are nearing, there will be more requests for assistance on there. Okay, let me what do I do? I mean, I can help them on content and some of the stuff that they want to do. Is there any other backup on the more technical side of stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there are a couple of routes we can go. If it seems like there are a fair number of students who are still struggling to get up to speed with Mahara, I would consider putting together an email that has links to a number of resources, including YouTube videos, the Mahara wiki, etc., that will allow them to do some self-instruction. I mean, we can certainly try to get on a Zoom call and walk them through some of it. And if that's necessary, I'm happy to do that. But Mahara, like Moodle, really is best learned in by trial and error and, using the available resources to sort of get yourself past that threshold where you feel frustrated and then it just sort of clicks. It took me a couple hours to get up to speed on it. I know some of our students are fairly low in terms of technological literacy. So do you think it would be useful for me to put together kind of a Mahara help email to get people pointed in the right direction, or do you think we
absolutely? Yeah, absolutely. From your point of view, what you found useful on that, and I think this is a good time for it because the time has come, let's say, and so the people that didn't enjoy it the first time, they're going to have to do it even if they don't enjoy it. So they don't. So yeah, I would certainly appreciate it, and I can follow up on that.
Right, and I can also let them know that if they do need one-on-one help beyond the general resources, that they could reach out to me. All right. All right, thanks. Anything else? Okay, so direct assessment. As you know, we've been working hard over the past 2 years to develop our assessment program. And one of the key pillars of that now is a direct assessment of student learning artifacts based on our programmatic learning outcomes. So as you know, each course template, syllabus template, has a space for you to select a subset of our 33 programmatic learning outcomes that will apply to your course specifically. Now, up until last year, we did this, but there was really no reconciliation. There was really no coming full circle or working to actually make sure that these key outcomes or competencies are actually represented in each class, and the students are actually getting those skills that we prescribe across the curriculum. So what we've done is, and this will require your participation. So so please, try to pay attention, like kind of in a detailed, from a more detailed perspective here. And I'll certainly send out instructions to those of you who have not gone through this yet. Term 1 and Term 2 faculty have been great about working with us to make sure we have all the data we need. So at the end of the term, each faculty member is responsible for submitting a student work sample. Basically, you will submit 3 samples of 4 assignments, okay? And again, I'm not gonna go into the details here. You will receive instructions, but basically you will submit a high-performing, medium-performing, and low-performing examples of student artifacts from 4 of the assignments in your course. What happens then is that we have 2 objective raters, Eric Pappas and Michelle McBride from the University of Redlands, who use rubrics that are based on the learning outcomes that are ascribed to your course. And they make judgments as to the degree to which each student learning artifact represents the learning outcomes that it is meant to teach, for lack of a better, that it is meant to represent. So, and then I'm just gonna share my screen here for just a moment. Let's see. I just want to show you the back end here of what ultimately comes from this work. All right, you can see this. So what we end up with are a list of our programmatic learning outcomes here on the y-axis, and each of our courses across the x-axis. And we can see a number of things once we assess the ratings from the independent scores, and we can see the degree to which each of the learning outcomes is being met in each course. This is a scale from 0 to 3, okay? So we can look at the learning outcomes in each course, and then of course we can look at the degree to which each learning outcome is being met across the terms, and a summative evaluation of the degree to which our learning outcomes are being met across all of the terms to this point. So of course we'll be adding to this in term 3 and term 4. This is really useful because not only does it allow us to get an idea of how each course is doing, but it really allows us to see how well we're doing at teaching our core learning competencies. And we can fill in gaps when needed. And of course, this is something that HLC, when they came to visit us, they just loved. And they thought, wow, not only are you guys really building your assessment program in terms of more traditional and indirect survey methods, grading, activities and artifacts being linked, but we really like this separate direct assessment program. So please be ready for instructions coming in the next few weeks. You'll have a couple weeks to put together your work sample and do basically another simple activity that allows you to basically link each of your assignments to specific learning outcomes. And I think that's about it. If there's anybody on the meeting who's done this that may have tips for others or has questions at this point about what's coming up, I'd be very happy to answer those.
Well, my question, you said there are 4 assignments and submit 3. Does that mean 12 things are being submitted or only 3?
12.
12?
Yes.
So
So again, basically the instructions will tell you to pick 4 assignments in your course that do a good job covering as good a job covering the learning outcomes that you've selected for your course as possible. And then for each of those 4 assignments, you'll pick sort of a high performing example, a medium, and a low. So we get a range of student performance.
Okay, so it's really the teaching and not the student you're looking at.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, our effectiveness at conferring the learning outcomes that we are, that we say we do. How well are we teaching the things that we aspire to teach?
Of course, if the same students,
it's also
if the same students are always low, then I question whether you're really assessing the teaching of the student.
Well, that's a good point. That's a good point, and we certainly do look to see, which if there are sort of names that come up over and over again, and you're right. I mean, this is really an evaluation of overall effectiveness of the program when you look at it from sort of a 10,000 foot perspective. So yeah, I mean, the degree to which the students are gaining the learning outcomes, I mean, you really can't parse the teacher from the student when it comes to the effectiveness or the quality of a student work sample, right? I mean, part of it is due to how well we're teaching them, and part of it is due to how well the student is performing. So this is really an overall picture of program effectiveness.
Okay.
There's another component, Jesse, that I interpret it as being, you turn in an example of A work, an example of B work, and an example of C work.
Yeah.
It's not so much an assessment of the teaching as it is are the grades that you're doing, would an independent observer agree with that, agree with the way that you're assessing the work that's turned in? Because it doesn't look at the number of A's and the number of Bs and number of Cs. It's an example of an A work, example of B work, an example of C work, right?
That's right.
Dan,
Yeah.
I would add that it might really be A, C, and F. But okay, just
Sure.
you know what I'm saying?
Sure. And let me just add, sort of closing the loop here, the process moving forward after basically the production of this, you know, the rating and the development of these data sheets showing the outcomes at the course level, the term level, and at the overall program level. We then add these data to the semesterly assessment report. They get added along with various other sources of data, including student surveys, other types of feedback. And then the Dean's Council members evaluate the entire semesterly assessment report and do a thematic analysis and basically draw out themes or opportunities for improvement and change, productive change at Future Generations. We then, and I'm actually doing this week, we put together a report for faculty that basically says, based on all of the data that we've accrued over this term, direct and indirect, here are the opportunities we see for change, data-based opportunities for change. This then becomes an important document to guide our faculty college. And we work diligently to implement as many of these opportunities for change as we can with our limited resources. So this really is an important process, and your participation is sort of the first domino that can lead to really productive change. So that's all I've got.
Let me ask another question, though.
Sure.
I'm not clear how a person who is not an expert in the field would be able to evaluate the student assignments. I'm thinking myself, for example, I know nothing about community and environmental protection or something. And if I were asked to read papers on that area, I would be totally unable to. And so I'm wondering, do you have experts in each of the areas that are being taught doing this independent evaluation?
Yeah, a great question. So the way that we've dealt with that is to create rubrics that have a lot of that content included. So for each course has a specific rubric, and each of the learning outcomes has basically a exceeds expectation, meets the expectation, or does not meet the expectation for each of those learning outcomes. And it's a fairly specific description for each of those levels of performance for each of the learning outcomes, okay? So the goal here is for the objective raters, and of course it would be great if we had, 15 objective raters that we could tap to evaluate student work in their areas, but we really just don't have those resources. So what we've done is try to cover as much of that context-based information at the rubric creation level, and brought in expert advice when needed in those content areas, and then let the objective raters use those rubrics to guide their ratings, and with the caveat that they can reach out if they don't feel that they have enough information to make quality assessments.
Donald has.
We have on this gathering here, the faculty gathering, representatives who are with a number of other institutions. And if anybody has examples from your institutional work of course evaluation that you think would be helpful for us, we would really appreciate that. And we have resources to engage in developing these as well. The larger issue going on here is that the U.S. Department of Education, especially now with the new proposal from the Trump administration to close down the whole department and to dramatically restructure the whole issue of accreditation, which is truly potentially at a very major level. But the U.S. Department of Education has brought in a whole new set of assumed practices, expectations for monitoring, demands for proof of performance from all institutions in this country, from the smallest tribal colleges to the largest R1 universities. And this whole process is unfolding this year. And so the institutions that are implementing objective evaluation methods for their curricula and for student performance, these institutions are likely going to be getting a multi-year pass on what other institutions will have to be suffering for. So if your institution, whether it's in Utah or Baltimore or wherever it might be, but we have on this team here a number of people who have other experiences in other institutions, have some bright ideas for what we can do to enhance this, please get in touch with Jesse or get in touch with me, because this is an area of institutional priority that we are putting as much resources behind as we can.
All right, thanks, Dallin. Thanks a lot, Jesse, and great questions from everybody. I think especially coming off of the Higher Learning Commission meeting, it was just reinforced to us the importance of continual improvement. And as Jesse alluded to, closing the feedback loop of getting that assessment and then making informed decisions based on it. And so that's a lot of what we're doing in this process of Jesse creating the assessment report and the Dean's Council reacting on that. And then also with the direct assessment, again, it was reiterated how important this aspect of direct assessment is, where the learning outcomes, the programmatic and the course learning outcomes are central to the whole process. And so that's what we're doing with the direct assessment approach that Jesse is leading, and not just relying on indirect measures like student evaluations and things like that, which is what we have done in the past. And so it's all a part of continuing to improve our process. And like Daniel said, if you guys have ideas from your institutions, we would love to hear those also. I'd like to, yes.
Just a quick response. We've learned at Hopkins that more important than evaluation is course design. And therefore we have a team of instructional designers that really help the faculty in designing the course, because if the course is poorly designed, the evaluations don't help very much. And I'm just thinking if perhaps at some point future generations could have experts in course design to work with the faculty to make sure that the courses are designed to meet the learning objectives and to measure them.
I have a general point.
Yeah, Ben.
This Ben.
Yeah, Ben, go ahead.
Along the lines of course design and rubrics, I also use rubrics in my courses online and on-site. I just hope that whenever we use rubrics, we could have one final rubric at the end that sorts of ask, did the course or did the learning activity, did the assignment make me reflect on other right answers? To me, that is one of the most important learning that I hope our students would get. Simply to ask the question, could there be more than one right answer? And I think there's so much damage done in teaching when we say there's only one right answer to every question. In the leadership courses that we teach, where we make people to leave their comfort zones and to go beyond imagination. So just opening the mind to say, could there be more than one right answer here, I think is going to be very helpful.
Thank you, Ben. And Henry, those are great comments, and we're writing them down to continue to help that inform our conversation. Any other comments? What I want to do now, I want to briefly address term 4 and some changes we've had, and then Dan Wessner, you're on with, I think, some proposals that you have to introduce, and then we'll close off. So term 4 will be starting July 1st, our term 4 faculty. Of course, we really appreciate you guys already being engaged in the process with the Moodle workshop and then coming on to this meeting. And what we'd like to see is at the beginning of May, just a draft syllabus, and then beginning of June, a draft outline of your Moodle course, just so that we have time to, since a lot of this is kind of new, we have time to improve and react to what you've done and talk about it. So those are some guidelines that we would like to see. And of course, Jesse and I are here and Paula to continue to work with you guys on that. Big change that we've made is, as most of you know, normally we have our term 4 residential in the US. We've decided not to do that because of visa issues. We just felt that too many of our students wouldn't make it into the US. And so we made the change to the Philippines, which, Ben, that's great for you. You are, and it works out well because you're involved in teaching a course there. So we're happy about that. The Philippines are a lot better for visas. Our Ethiopian students don't need visas. US students don't. Yeah, I think it's just about 3 of our countries will need a visa, India being probably the most important to work on. So I'm talking with the coordinator of the Yen Center this week. Our partners, IIRR, specifically Isaac Bacallo, have made this an option, so we really appreciate what they've done. A change in term 4, there's always a little change in the format. It will start with online. We'll still have staggered online courses, and the lab will follow that, and the residential will be last. That's how it is with term 4, so that there can be graduation there. Eric, are you sharing your screen? Eric, I'm not sure. I think you need to unshare your screen there. Eric?
Send him a text message. I think.
Yeah. Jesse, could you send him out a text message? Somehow he's sharing his screen. He clicked on something to share. Anyway, so any questions about the residential? In some ways it will, the format will be a little bit like the regional residentials, because all faculty won't be able to attend that, unfortunately. And so we have coordinators that will be working on. Hey, Jesse, could you call? Okay, there you go. All right. Now, it was interesting to see what Eric was up to. I was going to watch it. We're all going to read his email along with him that he was developing. Anyway, so the Philippine residential, we will have, again, for those faculty that won't be present teaching on the ground, hopefully they will be able to submit to me, and also to the RADs will be involved in this, learning outcomes that they would like to see addressed in the field residentials. That'll be an important part of that residential also. And the residential will also be shortened. In the past, we've done a full month. We've realized that that's just not feasible for the students to get away from work, and cost-wise, it's difficult. And so we're limiting the actual in-country time to about 2 weeks or 15 days. So that's another reason why we just can't have substantial on-the-ground time for each course. Are there any questions about that, especially from term 4 faculty? And again, we have time to be able to talk about it, but it's good to be thinking about it right now. Okay, Dan, I think you had a couple things that you wanted to address, and then we'll close off the meeting.
Okay, great. Thanks, Christy. Mm-hmm. I'm finally off the road, so this is safer.
Okay, good.
The one concentration that we've been discussing, and I want to present in written form to the faculty, and I'll do that after this meeting, would be the concentration in humanitarian engineering and enterprise. And I've been working on this for a couple of years with a team of humanitarian engineers from CU Boulder, University of Denver, the MacArthur Foundation, and industry. The impetus behind it was a request by IEEE, which is the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. That was an organization started by Alexander Graham Bell and Thomas Edison. And it's the second largest professional organization on earth. So IEEE is looking for a hook to draw its professional cadre of engineers in 187 countries into integrative development practice. So this team has come up with 4 courses. They've met many times. They're coming from many different disciplines within engineering. And I will send this proposal to the faculty to take a careful look at. But basically the courses are on how engineers do their work and the data and assessment that they do. The second course is challenging engineers to look at their job as not problem solving, but growing resiliency. So comprehensive and resilient engineering for a planet that has limits. The third course is on leveraging the relationship between rural and urban realities and the role of engineers to make that happen, particularly the role of engineers in secondary cities, those that are relieving some of the pressure on the mega cities, but also where so much growth is occurring right now. These are the 2 and 3 million populated cities that we don't even know the names of because they're popping up every week. And then last is on engineering and social enterprise. So all 4 courses are integrated through a growing case study that students would be building that is integrative, and it touches on health, environment management, as well as engineering sciences. So I'll submit that proposal and ask that you take a look at it as potentially a 3rd concentration within the Future Generations Master's degree. Related to that is another request that comes from a different part of the engineering world, the Humanitarian Activities Committee. And they are seeking a way to engage engineers who really don't know the first thing about just and sustainable development, but they have an inkling that this is what they would like to contribute to. So rather than the engineering foundations encouraging their engineers to just jump in with both feet and start thrashing around, they would like them to view a 10-video series that introduces engineers to development principles and practices, urban and rural aspirations and realities, the role of engineers in conservation, in health, in peace building, and social enterprise, in climatic adaptation, in nutrition and water, and so forth. And so this is a proposal. It could be a multi-year proposal that would be hand in glove with the concentration that I just described. It would be the hook, line, and sinker to get engineers to actually enroll in the Future Generations Master's Program and perhaps take that concentration in humanitarian engineering. A third item, also coming from the engineering world, is how can these things be introduced in a culturally contextualized, empathetic way through kindergarten to 12th grade education. And I think of the 3 things that I'm introducing, this is perhaps the most ambitious, but maybe the most important. If we think of the futuregenerations.org and the work of Mr. Huang out of Hanoi with trying to grow the federation of our Future Generations Masters graduates and how they contextualize this in their countries, this proposal that from the engineers, that we submit a proposal to them, again, across multiple years to grow curriculum for K through 12 on just and lasting change. This could be a resource, this could be a tool of use to our graduates and for them to contextualize in their own way in their respective countries. The 4th thing that I'll say is one that will require considerable discussion, and that would be whether yet another concentration would be on integrated development practice. And this is perhaps, if the organization wants to go in this direction, response to the MacArthur Foundation initiative to grow integrated development practice programs around the world. The Future Generations approach is unique, it's different, it's far more community-based than anything else in the MacArthur network. We are small, we are humble, and the other partners to the MacArthur initiative globally are R1 universities. Columbia, Berkeley, Emory are the three leading ones in the US. Globally, Tsinghua, Ibadan, Makerere, De Los Andes, there's all the top regional R1 universities. So this is for much longer and deeper consideration with the faculty and with the board, but do we want to somehow link into that network, knowing that we're distinctly different from many of the other members. But we have things to offer that they don't, and we have things to draw from their global expertise that, given our size, we can't pull off. And I do think this speaks critically to what Jesse introduced in terms of assessment and what Henry was speaking about in terms of course design and having experts on course design. This would just be a way for us to measure ourselves alongside, not against, but alongside other fine institutions that are trying to do an integrated approach to development as we are. Thanks, Christy.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. We have, I would say, about 5 minutes. Are there questions or comments? Like Dan said, he'll be writing up proposals and disseminating it among the faculty. So there, I mean, all of these, there will be time for more discussion. Any questions, though, in the few minutes that we have left?
Yes, I'm very briefly. I think I will submit some ideas that are compatible with what Dan was saying. I don't know if you've seen the disaster in Colombia that we've had in the last 10 days. That is something, another order of magnitude. That's something just we basically haven't seen. I'll explain that and circulate that. But I think that you know, we had this course. We haven't dealt very well with this course in community-based disaster mitigation or climate change mitigation. But I think that we should we can be working up something along those lines as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, as much as many links as we can find here and integration is great. And another place that we can talk about this is Faculty College, which is the first week of May. Normally that's a time it's a lot more intense where we have the full-time faculty. Certainly if any of you that are teaching one course or part-time would like to join via Zoom, we'll be doing it, some people face-to-face that are more local here the first week of May, and others that will be joining via Zoom. If those of you who are you know, part-time adjunct faculty, if you'd like to join that, please let me know and I'll give you the contact information and you can join in on some of these discussions also. Any other questions or comments about anything we've talked about or the initiatives that Dan's brought up? Okay, I will, especially term 3 faculty, on if you're still on, you, and so we can talk individually about some students and the situations. Other than that, I think we're done, and I really appreciate all you guys joining us for this time. It's really helpful.
Thank you, Christy. It was good to hear a lot of familiar voices.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's great. We have a lot of new ones and still a lot of long timers.
Old one.
Yeah. I didn't say old. Okay.
We had 15 people on the call. That's pretty impressive.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining, and please, if anyone has follow-up questions, just let me know, email me or call. All right.
See you all.
Great.
See you everyone.
Good day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.